So Robert, thank you for taking time for the interview. So have you been since you retired in 2008?
I just been, living my best life, so to say. When you retire, you try to figure out what path you're going to take. And for me, I was very fortunate that I had the Rockets approach me about doing television, then I had the Lakers approach me about doing television. And then you think about outreach, who has a bigger reach, Lakers or the Rockets? So I went with the Lakers, and I've been doing Laker television for the last 13 years.
It was the hard choice?
It was a hard choice because I love Houston so much, and it's weird that my first 4 years of basketball was with the Rockets. I only played 4 years there, but my love for that city and my oldest two boys lived there, and it was just one of those things where the connection was there, and I wanted to kind of stay in Houston. But the Lakers, I'll be honest with you, offered more money, so you kind of go where the money is, right? Yeah.
So now you're an NBA analyst. What can you say about the NBA Lakers season so far?
Being an analyst for the Lakers has been fun. I get work alongside like Chris McGee, Brezahan, and Allie, and of course Big Game James, the Hall of Famer. And it's been fun to analyze because you can see, the game from so many different aspects. Allie has hers, Brez has his, again, and then you go to James, who I call a lifer because, he first came to the NBA, played for the Lakers, and retired as a Laker. And I think for him to watch and hear how people react to certain plays and how a team is, and it's just fun in that sense to just get a feel for the Lakers, even though they're not doing as well as we want them to do, because the better they do, the easier it is for us to talk about them, right? And so you look at the team, and it's like they losing to all the teams that are in, like we call them playoff teams, because they're 1 through 8. The Lakers are 8 in their season right now, and they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. But if you want to be a championship team, you have to beat everybody.
Let's talk about you as a player. You have obviously an amazing career with 7 rings, 3 teams, and a lot of clutch shots. Let's talk about your nickname, Big Shot Rob.
Yeah. It's funny. Big Shot Bob came from a guy by the name of Craig Kilborn. Used to be on ESPN. And I remember back in 95, we were playing the San Antonio Spurs, and I was 0 for 9. I was 0 for 8. I was 0 for, that's what we call it. And end of the game, they threw me the ball, Dream threw me the ball, I pump faked the ball to Sam Cassell in the corner, took a dribble in, and took a jump shot, knocked it down. And he said it as a joke on ESPN because I was 1 for 9. And he's like, it was time to go to Big Shot Bob. And that's how the name was started. And it kind of stuck with me ever since. There's nothing wrong with having a name like that because they're known for you to knock down shots at the end of the game.
It started with a joke.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I started as a joke, but then it kind of just stuck with you. Yeah.
How do you see your NBA journey?
I look at my NBA journey as a successful one. You think about it, I played 16 seasons, won 7 championships, and a lot of people look at me as, that's the guy who just, piggyback off a Dream, piggyback off of Shaq, piggyback off Tim Duncan. But things that people don't really know about basketball, it takes a lot to deal with guys like that. You got to gain their trust, number one. And then number 2, they got to believe in your IQ. Like I would go to, people would look at me like I'm crazy when I used to yell at Dream about something. And it was like, you yelling at Dream? Nobody yells at Dream. I said, I don't care. If you mess up, I yell at you. If I mess up, you yell at me. I don't get offended, so why can't I yell back at you? And I was always been that type of guy to go to the big dogs and, yo, man, you messing up. If you're going to get paid all this money and you're going to become the superstar, you need to do A, B, C, and D. And I wouldn't do it, like in front of people. You just go to them like on a personal note, like we're talking now, and just talk to the guy. And that it was a respectful thing. And I think for me, every guy I ever played with, they respected what I brought to the game. I know a lot of people are like, well, you didn't score a lot of points. I said I did what was necessary to win games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your start was better in playoff than in the regular season. Are you a lazy guy during regular season, or are you just a playoff guy?
I tell people this all the time. It's like you show up when it counts, right? You're supposed to show up when it's supposed to count. And
it's better that way.
Yeah, because when you're in the playoffs, people are going to focus on the top dogs. They say we're going to shut you down, and we're going to shut the other guy down. and someone else has to step up. And for me, I'm like, okay, this is my time to shine, because instead of getting 5 shots, I'm gonna get maybe 8, maybe 10 shots. And that's what you got to look at. It's like the volume of shots that you get, and your percentage of shots. Even though there were some moments in 2004 where I didn't play well. I didn't play well in the playoffs, and it was because I was tired. I look back at video and how I played. It was things that you can't do as a player to be successful, and if your body's not performing for you, you're not going to be successful. But for me, it's like I always been the guy that's going to step up. I've always been the guy to sacrifice. And that's the biggest thing to being a basketball player. When you're not the A-lister or the number one guy, are you willing to sacrifice your game for the better of the team?
Everything started with the Rockets. At that time, the Bulls and Michael Jordan dominated the league. How much do you regret to never face the Bulls in the finals?
Oh, big time. So I can shut all these doubters up, man. Because, everybody's like, oh, 94, 95, if Jordan was here, you wouldn't have won. I said, Jordan was back in 95. He just didn't have a good team. And you can't be successful in the NBA without a good team. You think about Jordan, Patrick Ewing, Tim Hardaway. Not Tim Hardaway. All these guys, that have been ever played this game. If you don't have a 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that you can count on, you don't win, man. And for me, if you go back and look at our history against the Bulls when I was with the Rockets, I think we were like 7-1. As 6-2 or something like that. It was like favorable for us. And you think about this, we had a guy by the name of Vernon Maxwell.
Yeah, sure.
Had a guy by the name of Clyde Drexler. Even though everybody said, oh, Jordan would have killed him, Jordan had to work for everything he got. But this is the thing, and the Bulls never had anybody that could guard Hakeem Olajuwon, and he gets disrespected all the time about how good he really was.
For Jordan, it was a relief. Jordan himself said he always wanted to avoid Hakeem and the Rockets. What Hakeem said about facing Michael Jordan?
Dream is the type of guy, he's not a very talkative guy. He leads by example. And he's always said that MJ, was a competitor. He always said that about Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, all the guys he admired. He's such a humble guy. And I wish he would have been one of those guys that talked a lot of trash, because he had the right to talk trash. One of the first guys to ever be, league MVP and defensive player of the year. And for me, just to play alongside him was a dream come true for me, because I grew up wearing his shoes, Etonics, and, just being a huge fan, because when you're a player, you analyze the game. You analyze players, and you look at what do they do on both ends of the floor. And for me, when you talk about greatness, it's all about the guys who have been all defensive teams and, all NBA, because all NBA is basically judged on offense. But if you can make all defensive team and all NBA at the same time, like Dream and Jordan and all these guys, then you're an elite athlete.
98 and 94, it's not the Bulls, but the Knicks. Mm-hmm. And how tough were these finals? The Knicks were playing a very, very physical game.
Man, I think I've won 7 championships, and that one is the toughest one I ever won. Just for the simple fact that, it was the first one, and you was playing the Knicks, coached by a great Pat Riley. And you think about this team, the late, great Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, Charles Smith, Patrick Ewing. Those are 4 beasts right there. When you talk about enforcers, you think about me. I would think I was weighing like 210 then. 6'9", 210. I was getting tossed around like a little rag doll.
I remember you tried to fight with Charles Oakley, on the dunk.
And so I actually had Charles Oakley on my podcast. And I said, first of all, I want to apologize. But, I got caught up in the moment, because you dunk, and I yelled in his face. And I'm like, that was not very smart, Robert Orisa. But that team was just so tough, and the physicality. You think about, everybody from Greg Anthony to, down the list. And it was just a tough physical game. And it went 7 games. And I think I've only gone to 7 games twice in the 7 times I went to the finals. And that was a 7-game series, and it was the toughest.
Hakeem took the best of Ewing. What do you remember about this matchup, an amazing matchup?
I always went back to when Patrick and Dream played against college, because when you're a fan of someone, you're a fan of them in college. And I remember Dream not, coming out successful. Dream not winning the NCAA tournament because of the box out. It's all the little key things like that. So I remember him and Patrick were going up against each other. And I remember really one time sitting in my hotel room in New York, and I'm like telling myself how special this moment is. Not for the fact that I'm NBA and find that you seeing these two titans, Olajuwon and Ewing, who are going to go down as one of the top 5 centers of all time. You right there watching this moment. You're involved in this moment and you seeing it. And it was just incredible for me to be a part of it. And I look back and I look at all my championships that I won. You know, that's like, you know, if I had to list them, that's like 3rd or 4th on my list. And because it was watching those two titans battle and us coming out victorious in the 7-game series.
So finally, like you said, you're going to win in 7 games. 1 year later, it's not Patrick, is a young Shaq and the young Magic.
Yeah.
How these finals are different than the other?
You know, it was weird. The NBA went from brutality. It was just about who had the strongest, most physical team. And in 1 year, it went for like who has the most athletic team. And you look at what Orlando Magic had, you know, Penny Hardaway, you know, Shaq, Anderson, you know, Scott, Horace Grant, they got out of, you know, Chicago. And you look at that team, all those guys were athletic, including Shaq. You know, he could run up and down the floor with the best of them. And this team was just so athletic. And you look at us, you know, we were still the same team that was used to the brutality of the, you know, the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, the playoffs and stuff that we had just had. But our season wasn't going like it was supposed to, you know. Then we made a big trade and we got Clyde. We went from a physical team by losing Otis Thorpe to an athletic team by adding Clyde Drexler and moving me from a 3 to from a small 4 to a power 4. We went from like, okay,
for definitely,
yeah,
you're gonna play 4.
You know, and everybody was like, you know, I laugh at all these people who tell me, oh, we started small ball. I'm not gonna call any names, but the Rockets were the ones that started small ball with me, moving me to the power 4, and started because it all started playing against Charles Barkley. Because, you know, Pete Chilcutt really couldn't guard him. Chucky Brown was too small to guard him. And they looked down the line like, who's next? Rob, you're next. Small ball was born. You know, I was able to use my athleticism and my height and my ability to block shots. You know, even though he scored 40 points for me one night, it was a hard 40 points, I'll tell you that. But it was just, you know, it was born. You know, and then at the time I was shooting the ball extremely well from 3. Pulling people out, which made it easy for Dream on the inside. But that 95 championship was just, you know, 2 great teams going at it. And what people sometimes fail to remember, and the reason I shot the 3 so well was they moved the 3-point line in that year. People forget about that. And it was so much fun. And we were putting up 3s like nobody else in that era. So it was a fun time.
Do you think these Rockets are an all-time team for you?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you think these Rockets are an all-time team for you?
I think this team is an all-time great team because if you look at that 95 team, you know, we had Sam Cassell, who was coming into his prime. We had Clyde, who was at his peak, Dream, of course, at his peak. And Mario Elliott was playing peak. And then Kenny Smith, he was playing great. You know, we only played like 7 guys. And we got up and down the court and we played extremely well. But I look back at that team, you know, a lot of people, you know, you look at that team and you says, okay, they had like, you know, even though Clyde was an all-star, he wasn't an all-star in a Houston Rockets uniform. And people don't understand this. That goes to show you how much of a team we were. Because if you go through the history of all the NBA championships, you tell me how many teams won a championship with only one all-star. And that was us. That shows you how good we were as a team and how slighted the people are on the team individually. Like for me, I always tell people one of the biggest, you know, regrets of mine was not making an all-defensive team, which I should have my 2nd and 3rd and 4th year in Houston because I was 100 blocks, 100 steals. It's something that nobody was doing, and I got no credit for that because I was playing by a guy that was Defensive Player of the Year, so I kind of got, you know, his aura and his brightness would kind of block my aura. So I that's the one thing that people didn't realize about us back then. We were always number 1 or number 2 defensively.
And you finally gonna trade to the Suns, and there is a turning point in your career. Say when you threw the towel right in the face of your coach, that he end in the Suns, and the picture it's amazing. What happened?
You know, the thing about the Danny Ainge saga with me and Phoenix Suns, a lot of people didn't know my story, and I kept my story quiet. You know, BT, who we both know, Brad Turner, he knew my story. I had a very sick daughter who was, up and down with health, not knowing she's going to be with us or go on to her maker. And at that time, she was sick. And, I got traded to the Suns. It was like, she couldn't come to Phoenix with me because her doctors were all in Houston. Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, one of the greatest places, you could ever take your child for health care. It was just a bad time for me mentally. It was a time where, where you think your career's, on an incline, and all of a sudden you get to the Phoenix Suns and the team sucks. They're bad. It was just awful. And then you all of a sudden, you there and you start the season out 0-13 or 0-12. Or it was something ridiculous, most losses ever. And so it was just a bad situation. And then Danny Ainge, when we first got there, tells me that he hit Mario Elliott in the face on the ball on purpose. And I'm like, hold on, Mario's my dog, man. Don't you tell me that. And it was just a downward spiral from there. And then he became head coach. And then it got worse. And, we could talk for days about that, but it just wasn't, a good situation between Danny Ainge and myself.
It was a great move because after that, you're going to trade to the Lakers and you're going to play with Shaq and Kobe. Smart move. Yeah. Smart move.
The funniest thing is when Danny Ainge called me and said, yo, we're trading you to the Lakers. He says, you know what? I'm trading to the Lakers and I probably just won you another championship. I said, fine with me, bye. I hung up. I was out of Phoenix in 2 hours. I was in LA in 4 hours, and it was just so happy, You think about that team, you had Shaq, Van Exel, Eddie Jones, the team was freaking nice. Eldon Campbell, and then we had a young guy by the name of Kobe Bryant, trying to come into his own. It was just a phenomenal team, man. We had athleticism all crazy, but we didn't play well together defensively. We didn't play well together as a team. It was just something missing, but it was a fantastic moment for me, especially growing up a huge Magic Johnson fan, growing up a big Laker fan. It was just like it was like a second dream come true almost in my NBA career.
You have seen the duo Shaq and Kobe taking over the NBA. Did you know this guy together will be special?
You saw Shaq and Kobe together. You didn't know it was going to be as special as it was because sometimes when you within the mix, you don't see it. But when you sit back and then you start watching and you look around the league and you compare other duos, and you're like, nobody can compare to this. You got a guy that's 7 feet tall, that's more agile than a guy who's 5 feet tall, and you got a guy who's young and got the attitude of like it's nothing I can't do. And if I can't do it, I'm going to learn how to do it. And it was just a dynamic duo. And the thing that I appreciated so much about those two is they made the game so much easier for me. They made the game fun. Because sometimes, you got those nights where, you think an 82-game schedule, mentally you're not there. And then you look over these guys and you're like, they're younger than me. They still have the energy. And they haven't won a championship. I'm like, oh, I got to have these guys win a championship. So it was a lot of energy and a lot of effort that was put into that because you saw the energy and the effort that they put in it. So you had to match that.
From your perspective as a teammate, how Shaq was dominant?
Man, Shaq was the funniest dude ever, most loving guy ever. And this is a story I've never told before. It was so weird because, during Christmas time, which is the time of year now that a lot of guys, they do Secret Santa. I mean, it's like if I get you, I gotta get you a present. He gets me, you gotta get me a present, right? And everybody used to get on their hands and he's like, please let Shaq pick me. Please let Shaq pick me. Because Shaq would just go out and buy a Rolex and here, Merry Christmas. And everybody like, damn it, I didn't get Shaq didn't pull my name. One day he bought someone a video game. I'm like, come on, man, because we knew, you was going to get a great gift because I remember my last year with the Lakers, Slava Medvedenko, he got my name. He got me a bottle of damn vodka. Even though the vodka was good, I'm like, dude, I don't want no vodka. I want something. It was just, and that's the type of guy Shaq was. He was just so loving and so caring, and he was that one guy that he was going to look out for his teammates. But you always talk about guys who know how to have fun, but then cut it off and get the serious and the business like that was Shaq. He would have the most fun ever in practice, in the locker room, but when he stepped on that court, when the lights were on, you got to play 4 quarters for 48, he was ready to go.
And what about Kobe?
You know, it's for Kobe. It's so much you can say about the guy. You know, God rest his soul. He was one of those guys that, you know, we used to mess with him. You know, we would tell him that, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that, and that dude would be in practice the next day trying it. You know, trying to show that he could do it. You know, because he had the attitude. There was nothing on the court that he couldn't do. A fantastic guy, man. Just a great human being. You know, and whoever knew that, you know, after basketball, he would do so much for the game of women's basketball. You know, his love that he had for his daughters, the love that he was taking over to women's basketball was incredible. Because I've always loved women's basketball. I love basketball, period. You know, I can watch, you know, 10-year-olds play, 2-year-olds play. It's just fun because it's such a joy you get from watching basketball. It's such a joy you get from playing basketball. And that's what that exuded out of Kobe. I think that kind of carried over to the girls' game. And to watch him coach his GG's team, and because we were, you know, my son was in the same tournament as they were one time. We watched him play. And the last time I saw him, you know, we were just talking about it. And I remember seeing him, how much joy he had, knowing he had just had his last daughter. And he was like, oh, yeah, Vanessa's upstairs. You got to go check out my baby girl. You know, he was just so excited. And you would think that, you know, we throw that word legacy around so much that when you talk about basketball in the sense that Kobe was, that when you talk about legacy, he would want that son to carry on that Bryant legacy. But he was like, no. And his daughter even said, no, I got this. You know, and that's the most spectacular thing ever, when you know the name on the back of your jersey can carry itself no matter what, you know, daughter or son or whatever who's going to carry that name can carry it to make that name even brighter.
After winning the back-to-back with the Rockets, you win the three-peat with the Lakers, and you played a huge part with you buzzer beater with the Kings.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yes.
Vlade Divac slapped the ball.
You know what's weird about that game when Vlade tipped it out, and people, I don't know if I'm gonna just say it because the play was called "What the fuck." It's like, excuse my language. This is what we do in the flat. We're gonna run this. This is what Phil said.
It's for YouTube. It's okay.
Yeah. This is what Phil said. We're gonna run "What the fuck," and you're like, and so it was weird because if you watch the play, I didn't get a chance to set a good pick on Kobe because he took off too early, and I'm not about to get an offensive foul, so I spun out of the way, and usually Kobe kicks it back for the shot. You know, you look at through all my big shots I've made with the Lakers, I think 9/10 of them came from Kobe, you know, kicking it to me, having that belief in me. And you know, that one, he had a direct line to the basket. He missed it. Shaq missed the tip. And Vlad did what most people are supposed to do, tip it out. And people always want to say, why were you standing there? First of all, it's two things that's going on in my mind. Kobe's going to kick it back to me, number one. And number two is, I'm going to get the ball. I had to knock down a three. Because I'm the type of guy I'm going for the win.
It's not the regular season.
No, I'm going for the win. Anything can happen in overtime, and to show you that I believe in that, 2006, that happened to me with the Spurs. Anything can happen in overtime, even though you're at home. And so for me, I'm going for the win, going for the dagger, and very fortunate for us, unfortunate for the Spurs. Vlade did what all big men are taught. If you can't get it, tap it out, but you just happened to tap it to the wrong man.
I like to think you changed two dynasty, Lakers and Spurs.
Yeah.
Are you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
I think for me, being able to adapt to whatever situation I'm in, and I think for me, being able to adapt, and I talked about the word sacrifice, is so vital to playing in the NBA when you're playing with guys like, you know, Shaq, Kobe, Tim, Manu, and Tony. You have to be able to adjust your game. It's a lot of guys. You look at him like, man, this guy can play. Then you get sent to another team like, what happened to him? He can't play. If you can't adjust your game, you can't sacrifice your individual skill set to match with those guys, you can be in trouble. And I think for me, that's the one big scenario for me going from the Lakers to Spurs, that, you know, even though I had something down, you know, key, like, you know, think of Manu Ginobili, you know, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Shaquille O'Neal, you know, Tony Parker, Derek Fisher. I had dynamic players I had played with, so I was a little familiar with how that played. But it's still, though, your attitude and how you adjust to a new team, how you able to get those guys to believe in you. Especially for me, I look back at me going to the Spurs was the weirdest thing ever. And because you think about it, this was a team was like one of the teams it was a low key rival team. This is a team that knocked us out in '99. This is a team that just ended my last season as a Laker. And all of a sudden, you go into this team, and then all of a sudden, there's ring night, and you sitting there like, these mofos beat me to get this ring. So you have to adjust yourself mentally and get those guys to trust you. Because think about this, I'm the type of players, I ain't friends with nobody when I play. If you're on another team, you ain't my friend. I remember in 2005, Antonio McDyess, who we both went to Alabama, I said, yo, you can come over for dinner, you here hanging out, but when you leave here, you ain't my friend, dog, because you in my way of getting something I want to accomplish. And a lot of these guys, they don't know how to do that this day. They still friends. No, if I got to punch you in the mouth, I got to punch you in the mouth. It's about being successful and winning. And I've thrown that word out there, legacy. It's about adding to your legacy. And so for me, I didn't know how the Spurs would accept me. And it took me a while to adjust to that system.
Rockets, Lakers, Suns, between that. Spurs, do you have any problem with the Eastern team?
No, Eastern teams, man, they didn't want me. That's the whole thing. And plus, I thought about this. I started out in Texas. We then went to the Lakers. I'm not counting Phoenix, and then we went to the Spurs. And the whole reason the thing about, you get a little insight to me. After you win 3 championships, you've played in the league for so long. What's more important to you? Still continuing to play the game, or being close to your family. I mentioned my sick daughter at the moment. She still had complications at that time. So I just do I want to go back to Houston? I looked at the Houston Rockets like, nah, they're not good enough to win a championship. Then I looked at the Dallas Mavericks, and I said, they might be good enough to win a championship. Then I looked at the Spurs, and oh shit, they just won a championship. And might well just join them and see if we can do it again, right? And so for me, and then the other thing that came in was how fast can I get to Houston where my daughter was in case something went down. And it was easy. I-10, San Antonio, Houston was an easy shot. And for me, those were the deciding factors in why I went to San Antonio. I only signed a 1-year deal when I first went to San Antonio.
So you're going to win 2 more titles with the Spurs. Yeah. What can I say about your journey with the Spurs and win another ring? Your last 2 rings.
It's so funny. Like my journey with the Spurs was so different. It's a lot of things people don't know because people don't know contracts. My first year with the Spurs, in my eyes, I had a bad year. So I was making X amount of dollars. So I took less money, signed a 1-year deal, less money in 2005 to come back. People don't know this. Had a great year, 2005. We won the championship in 2005. Had a great series against against the Pistons. So the following year, I'm a free agent again. Dallas Mavericks come in and offer me way more money than what the Spurs offered me. And a lot of people don't know this. I turned it down. I could have chased the money, but I was comfortable where I was. I was like, why would I go make $6 million more when my daughter is worth more than all the money in the world, and I can get to her easier? And so I turned it down and signed a 3-year deal with the Spurs, and we're like, okay, I'm going to spend 3 years, 16 seasons. It's a wrap for me, because you don't win it my first year, then win again in 2007, and for me, even going into last year, 2008, when my daughter got really, really sick and almost lost her life, then I was like, man, I'm mentally I was done. Now I know we were talking about the story earlier where I went to Paris for training camp, and mentally I was not there. I remember telling the Red Rocket Bonner that I ain't practicing. You going out there? I think I probably practiced twice when I said, because mentally I was just fried, man. It's just from missing my kids, of playing 16 seasons, and at the time I was a #1 guy in playoff games. It's just a lot of things that went on that it just caused me to say, like, I'm done.
I want to do something with you. I want you to talk to me about the games 5 in 2005.
Okay.
What happened, man? Your dunk, your shoulder, you free, because I never understand why Rashid go double on Manu, man. But
it's a funny thing about when you have a game plan. I go back to 2005, game 5, and at halftime I was sucking. I had knocked down any shots. And you think sometimes it's tough to play. People don't understand the Spurs organization, great organization, But when you say, okay, how many plays did you have in Houston? 12. How many plays do you have in L.A.? 12. How many plays do you have in San Antonio? 1,200. They have more plays than anybody I've ever seen in my life. They have more plays combined. Every team ever played, they have more plays combined. And for me, it took a while to understand the system and understand the players because, San Antonio is the type of team where they're like, okay, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. There's no like, okay, I see A, there's a back cut, I got it. No, you can't do that. They were very robotic, but it worked for them. And for me, that was one of the things that I had to learn getting there. And that's why, like back in 2005, I learned it. And so, and now I know how to exploit this system and how I'm able to score in that second half because I said, oh, they keying in on Tony. They keying in on Tim. They keying in on Manu. Okay, I got to pick my areas where I'm going to shoot. And once I knocked down that first three, it felt so good. And as a shooter, once you feel that good, you're going to try to get that second one up. And when that second one on, I said, well, it's on. And I tell Bruce all the time, I said, you messed up my 3-point string, right? He said, what are you talking about? He said, but I led you to the best dunk of your life. I said, that's not the best dunk of my life, but it's one of them. He threw it at my feet and a pump fake, relocate, and get to the rack and dunk. So, people always ask me, what's the greatest shot I ever made in the history of my career.
You changed the finals.
Yeah, I talk about the one against the Kings, but that second half against the San Antonio Spurs, it doesn't get talked about because you've had guys like who are the main cogs, like LeBron, like Tracy McGrady, all these guys where they got the ball in their hand all the time. Oh, we did this in the second, but you got to think about it. I came off the bench. I'm not a key guy. I did damage. I made them fear me. I made the Detroit Pistons fans hate me because here's a guy that you think about, and through that whole period where I was killing them, there was never one play ran for me. It was me taking it upon myself, taking advantage of my opportunity.
You played with the winningest trio in the NBA, Duncan, Ginobili, and Tony Parker. How was their complicity on the court?
Man, that was so great. When you talk about big threes, they got to fit. You think about, you go to Boston, you talk about Rajon Rondo, you talk about Paul Pierce, you talk about Kevin Garnett. Each one of them is a different position. They fit. And you talk about the big three they had in Miami. But this probably, to me, was probably the best big three ever because you had a dynamic guard in Tony, quickest guy I've ever seen in my life with the ball. Think about it. This dude at one point averaged more points in the paint than anybody in the NBA. That's Shaq, that's Tim, that's all the bigs. Think about that. That's incredible. You had Manu Ginobili, this guy who set the world on fire by killing the USA and winning a gold medal. Left-handed guy, funny guy, could do the sham guy, all this kind of stuff with the handles. Then you got boring-ass Tim Duncan. That, Mr. Fundamental, but everything worked. This team was so good, and you throw Bruce Bourne in there, who's supposed to be the defensive stopper. You had every piece of a team that you needed, and the guys didn't care who got the glory. I think for me, watching Tim and his selflessness, one of the most unselfish guys ever, didn't care about anything, just wanted to win. At the end of the day, you just want to win because if you win, you successful, we all win, and you just want to win that chip at the end of the day so you can say, yeah, look, I won a championship. And I think that team and those three guys, to me, is the best big three of all time. You got what happened in Miami, but they didn't win enough championships like these guys did. So this is the best trio that I've ever seen, I ever played with.
You made a lot of big shots, but you also played a lot of Game 7. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what the Game 7, why the Game 7 is so special?
Mm-hmm. It's do or die. Game 7 is a do or die. It's almost like, NCAA basketball. It's like football playoffs. You only got one game. In basketball, you got to get to a 5-game series, 7-game series, whatever, and you got a chance to make up for your mistakes. But Game 7s are like, it's a chess match. We got to this point where we battled out, and whoever wins this game is going to the next level or winning the championship. And I think Game 7s, for me, have always been special. You try because you locked in. You block out all the outside noise, and that, to me, has always been the key. are you able to block out all the outside noise and have your family understand this ain't party time where y'all come in town, y'all go to the game, y'all have a good time. No, this is business. And this is the business of basketball. And the business of basketball is winning championship. And you got to be able to focus and come to that game correct and take care of business.
With 7 rings, I have an impossible question first. You have to rank Shaq, Hakeem, and Tim Duncan.
Well, you know, it's so weird that, you know, I've been asked this question and ranked the bigs I played with number one, and it's always been the same for me. Dream is always going to be number one. You know, and when and Shaq would tell you Dream is number one for him too. But when you say this and you tell this in front of San Antonio fans, they get pissed. Like, yo, you're slapping Tim Duncan in his face. He's won 5 championships. Dream has only won 2. Yeah, that's not saying anything. I won 7 championships, and I know Karl Malone's a better player than me. That ain't saying shit, you know. And so for me, I just think that, you know, Dream overall was just a freaking phenomenal player. You know, the way his ability to block shots, his ability to, you know, guard guards and stuff like that. And for me, I think he's number one. And just for pure, if I have to pick one player at one time to dominate in his prime, it's Shaq. You know, Shaq was the most dominant player I ever played with. You know, his ability to just make people fear him. You know, think about 300 pounds of muscle, strength, agility coming at you. He was just dominant, you know, and then the third is Tim. You know, and people, and it's like saying you got 3 apples and they're all the same size, you know, and it's just like, it's not a fair question, but this is my pick. And Tim comes last. It's not like it's Dream is 1, Shaq is 30, and Tim is 100. They're 1, 1A, and 1B. They're still number one. And for me, I think Tim just falls last just because he can take over a game, but not like a Shaq. He can block shots, but not like a Dream. And at the end of the day, Dream shoots free throws better than the 2 of them. And at the end of the game, you're going to foul somebody. Please don't foul Dream. Please don't foul Shaq, and please don't foul Tim, because they might miss that mug. And so, but Dream is going to knock it down. So that's why I always put Dream number one, because if you got to put someone out of those 3 on the free throw line, I'm putting Dream.
I don't understand. With 7 rings, nobody mentioned you in the GOAT conversation. How is possible, Robert? Come on.
Well, because, you know, this is the one thing that always irks me. And I know I'm not the GOAT, and I don't even proclaim to be the GOAT, but I am a damn good basketball player. Because basketball players are supposed to play on both ends of the floor. You're supposed to play defense, and you're supposed to play offense. And fans get caught up with the threes. Fans get caught up with the dunks. Fans get caught up in the numbers. Not just the fans, the people in the Hall of Fame, the people, all these analysts, they get caught up in that. And if you go to true basketball players, they look at what you did on both ends of the floor, what you brought to the game. Were you successful? Did you make the people around you better? Did your teammates love you? You know, for me, I think you can check all those boxes when it comes to me. My teammates love me, I hope. I never caused, I wasn't a locker room problem. I'm always an uplifter, and I always believed in my teammates. I always believed in myself. And for me, that's a sign of a Hall of Famer. That's a sign of a champion. And that's a sign of a guy who sacrificed so much for his team to be successful. Because you think about it, anytime you use me to score, I scored. Just imagine if you'd used me throughout the regular game, the regular season, regular game, we'd probably have bigger regular season records than we ever had, but you didn't use me until you needed me.
Last question. In a few weeks, we will celebrate 2025. 30 years ago, you were on the cover on NBA Live. You remember that?
Yes, I do. I remember that so. I'm gonna say that was my highlight of my career, off the court, outside of my kids. But I remember in NBA Live '95. I still got that cover. And the funny part about that is I met those guys who were like I don't know what the technical term for them, but they was the guys who wrote all the code for the things. And I'd be like, yo, man, I remember talking to them, don't make me terrible in this game. And people don't know this, but if you go back and play NBA Live 95, I'm the best player in the game. Because I met those guys. We had a good time. We had drinks in Orlando. I remember where I was when I met them. And we had a good time. And they were really nice, and they made me the best player in the game. And after a while, we used to play this all the time, me and my friends, and they was like, man, there's no freaking way you that good, man. That's bullshit. And I'm like, man, I'm that good in real life, dude. You seen it up close and personal. So it got to a point where my friend said, you can play with any team, but you can't play with yourself. I'm like, oh, I can't play with myself, but I've been with myself forever. But yeah, that to me, NBA Live 95, I talk about it all the time. A lot of people don't know it, but I was on the cover. It was fun, and I was the best player in the game. So that's outside of my kids, that's one of my best moments off the court.
Thank you, Robert. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.